The morning had started like any other for Ethan Carter. The sun was barely peeking through the blinds of his small apartment when the alarm buzzed at 6:30 a.m. He groaned, rolled over, and hit the snooze button, but before he could sink back into the warmth of his blanket, a small voice broke through the silence. "Daddy, we're out of milk." Ethan opened one eye and saw his 6-year-old daughter, Lily, standing in the doorway of his room in her unicorn pajamas, holding an empty cereal box upside down like evidence of a crime. He rubbed his face and smiled. "Good morning to you too, Detective. Guess it's a grocery run day." Lily grinned and ran to hug him. "Can we get chocolate milk this time?" He laughed softly. "We'll see. But we've got to hurry, Daddy's got work at 9. After a quick breakfast of toast and jam, Ethan bundled Lily into her jacket, grabbed his worn wallet, and the two of them stepped out into the brisk morning air. The grocery store was only a few blocks away, and they often walked together. Lily skipped along beside him, chattering about the picture she'd drawn at school, a house with a rainbow, 2 stick figures, and a dog she kept promising they'd adopt one day. Inside the store, the air smelled of coffee and baked bread. It was quiet, too early for the usual crowd. Ethan pushed the cart as Lily bounced ahead, her small hands grabbing apples and boxes of cereal she knew he'd never buy. Then they reached the checkout. Behind the counter stood a young woman, maybe in her mid-20s, with tired eyes and a faint smile that seemed like it had taken effort to put on that morning. Her name tag read Sophie. Her hair was tied back in a loose ponytail, a few strands falling across her pale face. She greeted them with a soft, "Good morning," her voice barely above a whisper. Ethan smiled back. "Morning. Just these few things." As Sophie scanned the items, Ethan noticed something odd. Her hands were trembling slightly, barely at first, then more visibly when she tried to pick up a carton of eggs. The scanner beeped unevenly because she couldn't keep the item steady. Lily noticed it too. "Miss, are you cold?" she asked innocently. Sophie flinched as if startled, then forced a small laugh. "A little, maybe. These stores keep the AC too high." But Ethan could tell something was off. Her hands weren't shaking from cold. It looked more like nerves, or exhaustion. He'd seen that kind of tremor before, in himself, years ago, when his life had been falling apart. When the total appeared on the screen, Ethan paid with cash. Sophie handed him the change with fingers that shook so badly a coin slipped and rolled onto the floor. She quickly knelt to pick it up, but Ethan stopped her. "Hey, it's okay. I've got it." Their eyes met for a second, hers were watery, rimmed red as if she'd been crying earlier. She muttered, "Thank you," and looked away quickly. Ethan hesitated. He wanted to say something, but he also didn't want to intrude. Then Lily tugged his sleeve. "Daddy," her hands are still shaking. Sophie froze. Her lips parted as if to apologize, but no words came out. She just looked down. Ethan crouched slightly so his eyes were level with hers. "Are you okay, miss? You look like you're having a rough morning." For a moment, there was silence, just the low hum of the freezer aisle behind them. Then Sophie exhaled, and her trembling hands went still for a second as she whispered, "I'm sorry. I didn't mean to make a scene." "You didn't," Ethan said gently. "You just seem not okay. That's all." Sophie blinked hard and forced another smile, but her voice cracked. "I'm fine, really. Just tired." He nodded slowly, though he didn't believe her. He could see in her eyes that it was something deeper. He gathered his bags, thanked her again, and turned to leave. But as they walked toward the exit, he glanced back one more time, and saw Sophie quietly wipe a tear with the back of her hand before turning to the next customer. That image stuck with him all day. Ethan worked as a mechanic, and while his hands were busy fixing cars, his mind kept drifting back to that girl at the counter. He'd known pain like that, the kind you try to hide behind politeness. Years ago, after his wife had died in a car accident, he'd stood at a cash register with shaking hands too, trying to pretend life was normal while his world was collapsing inside. That evening, as he picked Lily up from school, she said out of nowhere, "Daddy, that lady at the store was sad." He looked in the rearview mirror and met her eyes. "Yeah, sweetheart. I think she was. Can we go say hi again tomorrow?" He smiled faintly. "Maybe we will." The next day, they did. Ethan didn't need more groceries, but he found an excuse: bread, milk, and apples. Sophie was there again, this time rearranging candy bars near the counter. When she saw them, she looked surprised but smiled shyly. "Back already?" she asked. Ethan shrugged. "My daughter eats like a champion." Lily grinned proudly. "Hi, Miss Sophie." That seemed to melt something in Sophie's expression. She laughed softly, this time genuine. "Hi, Lily." Ethan watched her carefully as she scanned the items. The tremor was still there but less intense. He noticed faint bruises on her wrist, barely hidden beneath her sleeve. His gut tightened. "You sure you're okay?" he asked quietly when Lily turned away to look at the gum rack. Sophie froze, then whispered, "You shouldn't ask that." He frowned. "Why not?" Her eyes darted to the corner of the store, where a tall man in a gray hoodie stood near the exit pretending to browse. Sophie's face paled. Ethan followed her gaze. The man's stare was fixed on her. When Ethan looked back, Sophie was pretending to smile again, scanning faster. "Have a good day, sir," she said quickly, her voice trembling again. Ethan took the bag, nodded, and left, but the image burned in his mind. Her shaking hands, her fear, the man watching. That night he couldn't sleep. He tried telling himself it wasn't his business, but his conscience wouldn't let him. By morning, he'd made up his mind. After dropping Lily at school, he drove back to the store. Sophie wasn't at the counter this time. He asked the older cashier where she was, and the woman said quietly, "She's on break out back." He went outside and found Sophie sitting behind the store near the dumpsters, her face buried in her hands. When she saw him, she jumped up, startled. What are you doing here?" He raised his hands. "I'm not here to cause trouble. I just wanted to make sure you're okay. That guy from yesterday, he was scaring you, wasn't he?" Her eyes filled with tears instantly. "Please don't get involved. It's not safe." "Not safe for who?" "For you. For me. For my little brother." Ethan frowned. "Your brother?" She nodded, trembling again. "He's only 12. That man, his name is Carl. My mom's boyfriend. He's been hurting us for months. I tried to leave, but he finds us every time. I got this job to save money, but he keeps coming here, making sure I don't forget who's in charge." Her voice broke on the last words. Ethan's heart clenched. "Sophie, you don't deserve that." "No one does." She shook her head. "It doesn't matter. The police won't help. They said there's no proof. And if I push him, he'll hurt my brother." Ethan took a deep breath, thinking. "You have someone you can stay with." "Anyone." She hesitated. "No. My mom left with him years ago. I only have my brother. We've been staying in a cheap motel." He looked at her. And the decision made itself. "Come with me. Both of you. Just for a night. I've got a spare room. You can figure things out safely." Her eyes widened. "I can't. You don't even know me." He smiled sadly. "You don't know me either, but I know what it's like to be scared and alone. Please, let me help." For a long moment, she said nothing. Then she nodded slowly, tears spilling down her cheeks. That evening, Ethan picked them up, Sophie and her little brother, Max, a skinny boy with tired eyes but a polite smile. Lily greeted him like an old friend, immediately showing him her toys. Sophie cooked dinner as a thank you, and for the first time, Ethan saw her hands steady as she stirred the pasta. After dinner, the kids played while Ethan and Sophie sat on the porch. She looked at him and whispered, "I don't know how to thank you." He shrugged. "Just promise me one thing, don't go back. You and Max deserve better." She looked away. "What if he finds us? Then we make sure he can't." The next few days passed quietly. Ethan helped her contact a local shelter for women and children. They connected her with a legal advocate and arranged a restraining order. The process was hard, but Sophie kept going. Each morning, she still went to work, but now she smiled when she saw Ethan and Lily waiting outside after her shift. One afternoon, as they sat in the small living room watching the kids draw together, she said softly, "You know, I used to think kindness was just something people talked about. Not something real." Ethan looked at her. "And now?" She smiled faintly. "Now I think maybe it's the only real thing left." Weeks turned into months. Sophie saved money, found a small apartment near Lily's school, and began taking evening classes and nursing. Her brother started doing better in school, and the haunted look in his eyes slowly faded. On the day she moved out, Ethan helped her load boxes into her car. Lily hugged her tightly. "You'll still come visit, right?" Sophie knelt down. "Of course, sweetie. You're my little sunshine." As she stood, Ethan handed her one last box. "Proud of you, Sophie. You did it." She looked at him, eyes glistening. "No, we did it. You and Lily, you gave me a reason to believe again." He smiled. "Just promise me one thing, keep those hands steady." She laughed, holding up her now still fingers. "I think they finally are." Months later, Ethan and Lily stopped by the grocery store again. Sophie wasn't there anymore. Her coworker said she'd left to start her nursing internship. Ethan smiled, feeling a strange warmth in his chest. That night, as he tucked Lily into bed, she whispered, "Daddy, Miss Sophie isn't sad anymore." He brushed her hair back gently. "No, sweetheart, she's not." Lily smiled sleepily. "Because you asked her why her hands were shaking." Ethan paused, his throat tightening. "Maybe. But really, it's because she was brave enough to answer." He turned off the light and sat in the quiet room, thinking about how one small question, one moment of noticing someone's pain, had changed not just Sophie's life but his own. For the first time in years, he didn't feel like a man just surviving. He felt like someone who'd helped another soul keep going. And somewhere, miles away, Sophie was sitting in a hospital cafeteria during her break, her hands wrapped around a cup of coffee, perfectly steady. She looked out the window, smiled, and whispered, "Thank you, Ethan." Because sometimes, it only takes one kind stranger, one gentle question, to remind us that even in a world full of brokenness, compassion still has the power to heal.